So it was in section 1.2 where we looked at exponential expressions, right? Exponential expressions. So remember what an exponential expression consists of. Exponential expression. So with exponential expressions, we would have like a number, and then we would have maybe like a variable, and then an exponent, and then another variable and maybe an exponent, something like that. So with an exponential expression, you had what's called a coefficient. So this number here in front of the variables, that's called the coefficient. And the other guys are called the variables. So you got two variables here. So essentially there are three different components to this exponential expression. There's a coefficient, there's an x variable, and there's a y variable. So three different components. And then they're your exponents for your x and they're your exponents for your y. So that's what we looked at in the first section. So in this section we want to define, first of all, what is a polynomial? What is a polynomial? So definition, we want to define a polynomial. A polynomial consists, so I'm going to underline that word, guess what we're defining, consists of real numbers. Remember, real numbers are numbers that can be represented by a decimal. So most of the numbers you're familiar with. Real numbers, along with exponential expressions, connected, or I can say combined together, with the following operations. Addition and subtraction. Addition and subtraction. So when I take numbers and I combine them with exponential expressions with addition and subtraction, I get what's called a polynomial. Now let's look at some examples of some polynomials here. Let's see if I can get this to scroll. Well, that's not great. Scroll, scroll, scroll. There we go. Some examples of polynomials here. Examples. Number 1, 5x cubed plus 2x squared minus 9x plus 10. This is a polynomial. This is a polynomial with 4 different terms. So you have your first term is this cube term, your second term is this square term, your third term is just this x term, and then your fourth term is what we call just an ordinary number. Ordinary number that stands alone without a variable is called a constant. So this is a polynomial with 4 terms, is a polynomial with 4 terms. All right, so that's an idea of what a polynomial is. So notice how you have those 4 different terms and they're connected by either addition or subtraction. All right, here's another situation. 3x squared y minus 2xy minus 4 xy squared. So this is another polynomial. So you have your first term, your second term, and your third term. So your first term is an x squared y term, your second term is an xy term, and your third term is an xy squared term. This is a polynomial with three terms, is a polynomial with three terms. We call this actually, when you have three terms in a polynomial, we give this a specific name called a trinomial. Trinomial. Okay. Now let's do another example. Number 3 here. So we got just 7a minus 2b. Notice you have two distinct terms here. You have your a term and your b term. 7a is your a term, negative 2b is your b term. This is a polynomial with two terms, is a polynomial with two terms. Two terms. We call such polynomials, we call them binomials. Bi meaning two. A two-term polynomial, binomial. Number 4, let's say I just have this exponential expression here, 22 xy squared z. So this is actually a polynomial with just one term, right? We just have one term. There are 4 different components to this term, right? There's 22. There's x, there's the y component, which is y squared, and then there's the z component. So it's a 4-component single term. So it's a polynomial with one term, is a polynomial with one term. And we call such things, polynomials with one term, we call this a monomial. Monomial. Alright, so what we want to do, we want to look at adding and subtracting polynomials, and then we'll learn how to multiply them. But first, looking at adding and subtracting polynomials. Alright, so here we go. Exercises. Perform the operation. Alright, so the operation, in this case, we're going to see addition and subtraction going. So let's say we got the following. Let's say we got 2x squared minus 3x minus 1. And to that we want to add the following polynomial. X squared minus 4x plus 8. Right. So we got 2 polynomials. So the first polynomial has how many terms? It has 3, right? It has the square term, then it has the x term, and then it has the constant. The constant is just the number there by itself. And the second polynomial, notice, has a square term. It has an x term, which is minus 4x, and it has a constant term, which is just 8. So the way I'm going to do this, since we're seeing the operation here is addition, right? We see the operation is addition. We want to perform that operation. I'm going to play the stack game. You don't have to do this way, but this is a very kind of friendly way for beginners to learn how to do this. So I'm going to write down my first polynomial, 2x squared minus 3x. I'm going to color code things, minus 1. And then beneath that, I'm going to write x squared minus 4x plus 8. And realize that we're adding these together. Ooh, lost my color there. It should be a plus. We're adding these together. Okay, so we want to combine the red terms together. 2x squared and another x squared. So 2x squared plus 1x squared would be 3x squared. So imagine you had 2 apples and someone gives you another apple. So 2x squared plus another x squared would be 3x squared. All right, we want to combine negative 3x and negative 4x. When you combine negative 3x's with negative 4x's, you get negative 7x's. And then we want to combine the greens. Negative 1 and positive 8. So what's negative 1 plus 8? It would be positive 7. And there you have it. This is your new polynomial that results from adding the two polynomials together. 3x squared minus 7x plus 7. Yeah, so you can't combine the square term with the x term. You can't combine the x term with the constant term. So these are unlike terms. Squares are different than x's. X's are different than constant terms. So this is your final answer. All right, let's do another. Number 2. How about we have 5a to the 4th minus 2a cubed minus 4a plus 1. So that's my first polynomial. And I want to add that to the following polynomial. I want to add that to, what do we want to add that to? How about we have 9a cubed plus a squared minus 6a minus 5. So here our variables are a. So when we look at the first polynomial in the first pair of parentheses, we have a 4th power term. I'm going to underline that in red. Notice that the second polynomial in the second pair of parentheses doesn't have a 4th power term. In the first parentheses, I have an a cubed term. In the second parentheses, I have an a cubed term. So I'm going to make those blue. Notice that the first parentheses doesn't have a square term. However, the second parentheses does have an a squared term. So I'm going to do that in yellow, just in the second parentheses. And in the first parentheses, I have an a term, which is minus 4a. And in the second pair of parentheses, I have a term, which is minus 6a. And then finally, we have, what do we have? Let's use, I'll use purple here. We have a constant of 1 in the first parentheses, and we have a constant of negative 5 in the second parentheses. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to write down the first polynomial. I'm going to write 5a to the 4th, starting with the largest power. I'm going to go down to minus 2a cubed. That's the next largest power. Now notice we don't have a square term. We don't have a square term in the first polynomial. So we're going to skip over the square and we're going to leave a blank. And then I'm going to write a minus 4a for the a term, and for the constant I'm going to put a plus 1. All right. So I'm going to, underneath that, I'm going to put my second polynomial. My second polynomial. Now notice I don't have a 4th power term, right? I don't have a red term in my second polynomial. So I'm actually going to begin with the cube, which is 9a cubed, and I'm going to put that in the blue column and the cube column, right? 9a cubed. And then we have an a squared, right? Plus a squared. So I'm going to put that in the square column. And next I'm going to put the a term, which is minus 6a. And finally I'm going to put minus 5. Minus 5 in the constant, purple. Or maybe violet. Maybe you call that violet. Place. All right. Okay, so we're adding these two polynomials. So notice we have 5a to the 4th, and underneath that we don't have anything. So we're just going to bring that 5a to the 4th down. As far as the blue terms, we want to combine them. So what's minus 2a cubed added to 9a cubed? So minus 2a cubed plus 9a cubed. That would be 7, right? 7a cubed. 7a cubed. Okay, so notice that in the third column, you just have an a squared, right? A positive a squared, we're just going to bring that positive a squared down. There's nothing above to combine it with. Then we want to combine the green terms, right? Minus 4a and minus 6a. Minus 4a and minus 6a is minus 10a. And finally, we want to combine the violet terms, positive 1 and negative 5. These are just constants. 1 and negative 5 gives you negative 4. This is going to be our final answer here. Our final answer. So final answer here is 5a to the fourth plus 6a cubed plus a squared minus 10a minus 4, right? None of these can be combined together because they're all distinct terms. All right. So what we'd like to do, we'd like to continue. We want to look at actually, how about subtracting? So we've learned how to add here polynomials. How about subtracting? Subtracting polynomials. How about I have 4y squared minus 2y plus 1. That's for my first polynomial. I'm going to put that in parentheses. And after that, I'm going to put a minus in parentheses 3y squared minus 2y minus 4. Okay. So the very first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to color code. I'm going to call my y squares my red terms. My y terms I'm going to call blue. And my constants I'm going to call green. My constants are just my numbers there. Now, notice that we have this big old minus sign. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to change that minus right here. You see this minus? There we go, it's turned purple. I'm going to change that to a plus, and I'm going to change the sign of everything in the second parentheses. So I'm going to make this a minus 3y squared. I'm going to change the sign on the minus 2y. It's going to become a plus. I'm going to change the sign on the minus 4. It's going to become a plus. So that's a nice, easy tool to use. You change the minus there between the two parentheses into a plus, and then you flip all the signs in the right parentheses. So basically it amounts to an addition problem like we just had earlier. It's now an addition problem. So it's pretty much what we were doing earlier. So I'm going to do the stack method once again. I'm going to write down 4y squared minus 2y plus 1. And underneath that I'm going to stack, instead of 3y squared, I'm going to have a minus 3y squared. Instead of a minus 2y, I'm going to have a plus 2y. And instead of a minus 4, I'm now going to have a plus 4. So remember, I flipped the signs on everything. I flipped the sign. Remember, we're adding these. We're adding these now. We changed it to addition. So what happens when you combine the red terms? 4y squared plus a negative 3y squared. 4y squared plus a negative 3y squared would just be 1y squared. You could say y squared. What happens when you add negative 2y and positive 2y? Well, they just cancel out, right? They just completely cancel. And what happens when you add 1 plus 4? 1 plus 4 is going to be positive 5. So our final answer here is y squared plus 5. Y squared plus 5 is our final answer. All right, let's do another situation where we're subtracting, getting used to the subtraction. How about, let's do 3x to the third minus 2x plus 4. Let's It's my first polynomial. And then I have subtraction, in parentheses, a second polynomial. How about 5x cubed? Let's do plus 4x squared. How about minus 6x? And how about plus 8? Close the parentheses. So first we want to begin color coding. I'm going to start with, I'm going to call my cube terms red. So I got a 3x cubed is going to be red here, and then over here on the other one I'm going to have 5x cubed is going to be red. All right, notice we don't have a square term. We don't have an x squared term in the left polynomial, but in the right polynomial we do. I'm going to call that the blue term. We have x terms in both polynomials. I'm going to call these the green. So we have negative 2x in the left polynomial. We have minus 6x in the right polynomial. And it looks like we have constants. We have constants in both polynomials. We got the positive 4 on the left one and a positive 8 in the right one for now. And what we want to do after we color code, we're going to change this minus sign here in the middle to a plus. And once you change that to a plus, that means you're going to have to flip the signs on everything in the right parentheses. So essentially what you're doing, you're distributing a negative 1, if you want to think about it that way. You're distributing a negative 1. So you flip the sign. So we're going to have actually a minus 5x cubed. We're going to have a minus 4x squared. We're going to have a positive 6x, and we're going to have a minus 8. Yeah, so all those signs will change. So now we're just going to do it like an addition problem like we were doing earlier, right? We're going to have a copy down 3x cubed. Now we don't have a square term, so I'm going to skip the square, leave some space. I'm going to do a minus 2x. I'm going to do a plus 4. It's for my first polynomial. All right, and then underneath that, I'm going to stack the second polynomial. Rather than a 5x cubed, we're going to put a minus 5x cubed, right? We changed the sign. Rather than a positive 4x squared, we're going to put a negative 4x squared. Rather than a negative 6x, we're going to now put a positive 6x. And rather than a positive 8, we're going to put a negative 8. So we flip the signs, remember. All right, so now it's just a matter of combining the reds, bringing down the blue, combining the greens, and combining the yellow. So what's 3x cubed and minus 5x cubed? Well, 3x cubed and minus 5x cubed is negative 2x cubed. Then you just bring down that minus 4x squared, right? There's nothing to combine that with, so it just brings down, it drops down rather. Negative 2x combined with 6x. Negative 2x plus 6x is going to be positive 4x. And finally, 4 and negative 8. 4 and negative 8 is going to be minus 4. So there you have it. This is your answer. Minus 2x cubed minus 4x squared plus 4x. Minus 4. A lot of 4's in there. A lot of 4's in there. All right, so I think we'll just stop here for this video. In the next video, we're going to look at multiplying polynomials together. So this is actually the end of 1.3. 1.4 will be multiplying polynomials.